Week 1 is in the books, and it's definitely a fun start to this PDL season. Before we get into the replays, let's take a quick look at the standings. These are the standings going into Week 1. Very exciting. And now there are 3 trades to cover, and we'll go through them in chronological order. The first one is a trade between 2 coaches, so that's relatively rare. But the Lightning Lancers traded Rhyperior to the Varsity Farmboys for Excadrill. A swap of both fairly early round picks, and both in free agent slots, which will come into play in a moment. But yeah, I guess Rhyperior makes some sense for the Farmboys, being sort of bulkier and lending itself more easily to a tanky role than Excadrill, considering that they don't have sand set up. They have 2 weathers, but not that one. On the other hand, looking at Excadrill... Oh, well, okay. The Lancers have Hippowdon, so yeah, Excadrill does get the Sand Rush or even Sand Force boost paired with that, so that makes a lot of sense on their end. Up next, we have our first free agent trade of the season. The Boston Biblically Accurate Maushold swapped Illumise out for male Meowstick. If you're not familiar with Meowstick, the male is the prankster support one, while the female is geared more toward offense. So basically, the Biblically Accurate Maushold have swapped one prankster Pokemon out for another. No Illumise means they don't have prankster Tailwind, although they do have still a Tailwind user in Hisuian Decidueye. I don't know if Flapple gets Tailwind, but they have at least one Pokemon that does. But what Meowstick can do, what can it do? I think it gets Fake Out. It definitely gets Manual Psychic Terrain, which actually could pair pretty well with that Armarouge. I don't know what other support options it gets, but I'm sure a bunch of interesting ones. We'll see what they do with it over the course of the season. Finally, I was playing a bit of a trick just now when I talked about what Rhyperior could do for the Varsity Farmboys, because they promptly swapped it out for Garganacl. So it does kind of make me wonder what that trade was about in the first place. I mean, they could have just turned Excadrill into Garganacl, but for some reason they gifted Excadrill to the Lancers. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. If you see this, you can let us know in a comment if you want, but Garganacl, I guess, even better suited to a tanky role than Rhyperior, as it has less exploitable weaknesses, especially with the classic Terra Ghost set, since its ability gives it a Ghost Resist. Then, of course, it can spread damage with Salt Cure, which could be strong next to, I don't know, Blissey, Bayleaf. They have some options for bulky mode on this team, along with the dual weather stuff. The team still looks a little disjointed to me. I don't necessarily know how all the pieces fit together, but I do think Garganacl probably makes more sense here than Excadrill did. And that's it for trades this week, so we're just going to go ahead and cut to the replays now. And again, we're going to go through them in chronological order. So the very first set played in PDL Season 6 was between the Boston Biblically Accurate Maushold, a team that, again, has a lot of nostalgia for me and my favorite name and logo in this season so far, against the defending champion Think Boy with the melodic Miraidon. Going to be an interesting one right off the bat. So Boston Spooky here has brought Meowstick right away after making the trade. Here it is in Week 1, along with Armarouge. So again, there is Psychic Terrain Expanding Force potential. And then we have Clefairy and Maushold. Clefairy presumably running a support set with like Follow Me, maybe Helping Hand. And that could mean that the Maushold is not running Helping Hand, but instead has something else in mind. And then I don't know what Poltegeist and Rotom are here to do. We'll have to wait and see. I bet to say right off the bat, I have seen the results of all the sets because they get posted in the Discord, but I have not watched any of the replays yet. So a lot of what happens is going to be a surprise to me as we go, and I'm going to generally try to keep it that way each week. Maybe I'll record a game live if I happen to catch it at the right time, but I'm not, I'm going to try not to watch the replays before I'm here recording, and I haven't watched any so far this week. And then on the other side, got a bunch of strong threats and an Impidimp. Don't know what that's going to do, but fun prankster stuff, no doubt. And then the Thwacky Sneasler, of course, could activate on Burden with a Grassy Seed. And I don't know, the Dragapult's pretty unpredictable, and it looks like the most threatening Pokemon here, so I think we better just get into the replay and see what happened. So, game 1. Meowstic, Clefairy lead versus Ribombee, Glamora. I don't know what anything is going to do here. But in turn 1, we get a Spiky Shield to follow me, Tailwind from the Ribombee, and Trick Room. Oh, Trick Room Meowstic right off the bat, turning the opponent's speed control on its head. The Impidimp switches in, and is that really what shiny Impidimp looks like? Because that's kind of scary, if we're being honest. Wow. Now we get the Psychic Terrain, and the Clefairy goes for Fake Tears. Wait. The Clefairy and the Ribombee both went for Fake Tears. So everybody's trying to hit hard with their special attacks. Armarouge has come in now. It's threatening Expanding Force, but of course the Impidimp is immune. Clefairy, Fake Tears, Impidimp on the switch. That makes sense. So Spooky could double target the Ribombee here, anticipating that the Impidimp is not much of an offensive threat, or could just throw off an Expanding Force anyway. We'll see. Meowstic goes for Psychic Terrain again. And they're both just kind of setting up here so far. The Impidimp sets up screens, and the Armarouge just goes for Calm Mind, and then tanks that Pollen Puff pretty well. The Tailwind is gone now, but Spooky should still have the slower Pokemon. So that's... But it's the last turn of Trick Room, as Armarouge goes for a Heat Wave, knocks out the Ribombee, does decent damage to Glamora. And the Dragapult comes in with no Trick Room. I see Clefairy is using Redirection this turn, but I imagine Armarouge could take a lot from a Dragon Darts. Which, wait, how does that work actually? With no Redirection, Dragon Darts would hit Armarouge twice because of its smart targeting, since it does no damage to Clefairy. I don't know whether the Follow Me would change that at all. But they go for Phantom Force, and knock out the Clefairy from full with a crit Sludge Bomb. Armarouge, Expanding Force knocks out Glamora, but doesn't hit Dragapult. Impidimp and Maushold come in. And Maushold does have Follow Me, as Impidimp goes for the Prankster Swagger in Psychic Terrain, so that does nothing, and the Phantom Force does nothing into Maushold. And is Armarouge just going to go for an Expanding Force here? Yep. Dragapult's gone, and Maushold and Armarouge should be able to clean up the Impidimp, which it looks like doesn't even have an attack, probably, because you think it would have used it there, unless they're just hiding something for game 2, but I can't imagine what. Anyway, biblically accurate Maushold take game 1 pretty convincingly, but of course it's a best of 3 set, so we go to game 2 now. And it's Sneasler and Impidimp leading against Meowstic and Poltegeist. So both players have made some changes in what Pokemon they're bringing. Let's see, game 1, nothing was really stopping the Armarouge Trick Room mode with the manual Psychic Terrain from Meowstic. I don't know how the Sneasler is an adjustment for that. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to do. Well, some kind of Terra Dark stuff, but we'll see. And the Poltegeist, I mean, I don't know if they're just going to go for Shell Smash to try to outspeed here. Ribombee not being in the lead means Think Boy doesn't get Tailwind, at least turn 1. So maybe Spooky, after winning with the Trick Room stuff last game, is going for a fast mode this game to try to flip the script on Think Boy yet again, but we'll see. It is Terra Dark Sneasler. And the Impidimp... Oh, it's Mirror Herb. Okay. So the Swagger Impidimp gives a free boost to the Sneasler. And actually, Poltegeist just goes for Trick Room, so there's no Shell Smash this game, I'm sure. And it's Terra Dark Poltegeist as well. Cover for a Dark Attack from the Sneasler, or the Impidimp, I guess. Another Calm Mind set. So the Armarouge and the Poltegeist are both running Calm Mind. The Sneasler is just throwing off Dire Claw. But the Poltegeist doesn't seem to have an attack apart from Shadow Ball and drops to a close combat. So... yeah, I don't know what the Terra Dark Poltegeist was really about there. I mean, it would change its Dark weakness to a resistance, but you can reasonably anticipate that a Sneasler is running a fighting attack. Maybe they had reason to suspect that it wasn't. I mean, fighting isn't the strongest coverage into this team here. But the Poltegeist does just drop there. They get Clefairy in, and if they have, say, Armarouge in the back, they might be able to get some offense going. Cursed Body activating on the close combat is kind of fun, and actually does make it a little easier for the Maushold to come in. So that's the 4th Pokemon. No Armarouche this game. Swagger into Maushold is going to make Population Bomb do more damage. But, of course, it has to break through Confusion. The Clefairy is throwing off Chilling Water. So we get Glamora in. And we're going to get a lot of text on the screen here between the Population Bomb and the Toxic Debris. As Glamora just drops to +2 Population Bomb, but now the Sneasler's back in. It has Fake Out Pressure. It has... Ooh. It has its attack stat unnerfed. And the Clefairy is taunted. Of course, the Clefairy can go for Chilling Water, but that's if it doesn't just drop to Dire Claw or something. The Sneasler, granted, has thrown away its Mirror Herb boost. So I guess it lost some of that already. Maushold just protects here. On a close combat. Okay, fair enough. We're trying to weaken the Sneasler, but... I mean, if this is how Spooky has to play this, then I don't think this is... I think they're in a bad position here. The Terradark Sneasler has really come through with this game. And I think it's going to be hard for Spooky to deal with in Game 3 as well. It just has such good coverage into their team. But they're trying to play this slowly. I guess get some more drops. With the Maushold being poisoned, though, they're on a timer. And here's the Thwackey. I guess it's not Grassy Seed Sneasler comboed with this Thwackey because we saw the Mirror Herb. But the Thwackey is here anyway. To do what? I'm not sure. It helps to cover the Rotom, but of course the Rotom hasn't come to either game so far. It can overwrite Psychic Terrain, which actually, that's probably an important adjustment after Game 1. So having the Thwackey for terrain control is good reason to bring it. But in any case, I think it'll drop to this Population Bomb. Yeah. But the Sneasler resets its attack drops again, and Maushold continues to be chipped down by the Toxic and just drops to a close combat this turn, and Clefairy is not winning this game by itself. So, I like the repeated swagger from Clefairy. Let's see if it hurts itself. It does. That actually does some decent chip at +4 attack. How often do you see +6 attack Clefairy? That's funny, but it just drops to another Dire Claw, and we're going to Game 3. And I don't know how Spooky adjusts to the Terradark Sneasler. That's really hard to deal with. Maybe the Rotom has Will-O-Wisp. Maybe the Poltegeist has Will-O-Wisp. I shouldn't have... What moves has Sneasler shown? Fake Out, Protect, Dire Claw, and Close Combat. So we know that it doesn't have a Dark-type attack at this point. So if the Poltegeist has Will-O-Wisp, that's probably their best bet. But Dragapult can help Ink Boy cover for that. The Rotom is also a possibility if it's running Will-O-Wisp. It has to worry about the Thwackey, probably. But we have no idea of its set or its Terra type. And, I mean, I can keep speculating or I can just get into the game. Impidimp Dragapult lead this time against Meowstic and Clefairy. So Spooky really wants something here. And it's the Trick Room. Okay, makes sense. The Trick Room was their big advantage in Game 1. Maushold comes in. Sneasler is going to start off at -1 attack, as Maushold just expertly blocks that Phantom Force with its normal typing. Think Boy has shown all 4 Pokemon already. No Ribombee, and interestingly, no Thwackey. So, I don't know why they don't think they need the Thwackey this game, but they do have a lot more offensive pressure without it, especially when we haven't seen the Rotom so far. And we've seen 3 of Spooky's Pokemon, so the Rotom might well not be here. They certainly didn't bring Rotom and Poltegeist. They can only brought one of those 2 in Armarouche, so Spooky is giving up a lot of offense for... Well, I mean, the Maushold is hitting hard with Population Bomb, so maybe not a lot of offense. But I think it almost has to be the Armarouche in the back, with these 2 support Pokemon in the lead spots. But let's see. Chilling Water does decent damage to Glamora. Meowstic is back, and Dragapult. Okay. What is Meowstic doing on this last turn of Trick Room? Terra Dark. Weakening the Glamora's special defense, probably hoping that Chilling Water would KO. It doesn't quite, but the Glamora is very low now. Of course, we see that it's getting rid of Clefairy right at this moment. Oh, and that U-turn did so much. Meowstic going Terra Dark, keeping that weakness. And now, of course, it's weak to the close combat from Sneasler. And the Trick Room is gone. And no Psychic Terrain means the Armarouge can't get off an Expanding Force, but no Trick Room means the Armarouge just drops to Meteor Beam, as they didn't manage to get rid of Glamora first. So, Spooky kind of just ran out of options here. As the Chilling Water just didn't get rid of the Glamora, and then the Armarouge was too vulnerable, especially without its Terra. I don't know what its Terra type was, but might have been best to save the Terra for that. We do get one more Population Bomb KO, so that's fun, but the Dragapult should be able to clean up here, and it does with Dragon Darts. And so the Melodic Miraidon take week 1. And we move on now to... what teams are these? Lightning Lancers versus Azure Bay Chatots. You can see the Chatot, I mean Squawkabilly here. They've used the blue one. I believe they get access to every Squawkabilly form. And I know some of them get different abilities, but I'm not going to lie, I don't remember the details. In any case, they brought that with Kingambit, Gyarados, Hatterene, Chandelure, and Venomoth. So a ton of threats, and I would say a likely Trick Room mode with Hatterene or Chandelure setting it up. Against, once again, a trade coming through in week 1. We have the Hippowdon Excadrill pairing. All the more reason to be serious about getting Trick Room up if you're the Chatots. And Gyarados' Intimidate could be clutch against these two, although there's probably a clear amulet somewhere, I would guess, on the Excadrill. But then there's yet more physical offense in Salamence and Crawdaunt. Indeedee could seal or reverse the Trick Room, so that might be a counterplay for that mode. And then the Alchemy threatening Decorate to make the physical attackers hit even harder. What else? The Salamence might have Intimidate, so the Kingambit could be a good tech into that, but... Again, we'll just have to get into it and see what Pokemon they bring. Actually, Chatots have 2 possible Intimidate users in Gyarados and Squawkabilly, I think. I think every form of Squawkabilly gets Intimidate, but yeah, this says that the blue form can have it. So, the Lancers probably have a clear amulet on Excadrill, is my guess, but if they don't, they might regret that. Anyway, we get Hatterene Venomoth lead against Excadrill, Hippowdon. So, I mean, this is almost an easy Rage Powder Trick Room, unless there's safety goggles somewhere. But they also could just throw off a couple of Rock Slides with these Pokemon, or even just one Rock Slide, and maybe get a flinch. So it's not a perfectly clean Trick Room setup, but I don't mind this position too much if I'm Chatots, if I'm Mario Man. The only other thing is that the Hatterene, of course, is weak to Excadrill. So you really can't be taking a hit from that. Unless it has some interesting Terra type, but we'll have to see. Terra Rock Excadrill, so they are probably just going for the Rock Slide play, and they are. Misses the Venomoth, but hitting the Hatterene is more important. And they do get the flinch. So that's big. That could be game-winning right there, turn 1, depending on what Mario Man has in the back, as both Pokemon drop to the Rock Slide turn 2. And it's Chandelure, Kingambit in the back. So you knock out the Chandelure, there's no Trick Room. They just keep going for the Rock Slide. Oh, and it's Life Orb Excadrill, so no clear amulet on that. There could be a clear amulet on something else, but if I'm Mario Man, I'm definitely thinking about bringing something with Intimidate after this game. The Trick Room does go up, but it's actually beneficial to the Hippowdon at this point with Excadrill gone. Hippowdon gets burned, but I don't... Oh, and the Trick Room is reversed? That's interesting, because the Hippowdon was actually benefiting from the Trick Room once the Excadrill went down. I'm not sure why you reverse it there, but I find it hard to believe that Chandelure can win this. Maybe it's possible, let's see. It's Salamence in the back. I really don't want Trick Room, I guess for the Salamence's sake. And yeah, the Salamence can just clean up with dual Wing Beat into the Terra Grass Chandelure. Nice. So that was a quick game 1, but there definitely was some luck on that first turn, so let's see if it holds up in game 2. Yeah, we do start to see the Intimidate coming, I think. As neither one of these two Pokemon has the Clear Amulet. They'll probably go for the Trick Room setup again. Lancers just go for the turn 1 Rock Slide play again. But they lose Excadrill to a Waterfall. And that high horsepower doesn't do much to Hatterene. They do get the flinch again, which is kind of wild. And they just go right to Salamence. They don't have much offense with the Excadrill gone, so the Gyarados adjustment is still... Ooh, yeah, the Gyarados adjustment was still big, even with the flinch. Because that Gyarados is a huge problem for Lancers if they don't find another mode. When the Excadrill goes down with these 4 Pokemon coming, they really don't have much offense without it. The Salamence is the only offensive piece remaining. You saw how little high horsepower from Hippowdon did to Hatterene. And just losing it to an expanding force like that because they didn't have... Well, they got Salamence on the switch in because they didn't have any offensive pressure into Hatterene after Excadrill went down, even without Trick Room on the field. That's what... I mean, it's simple, but it's a very good adjustment from Mario Man, and I'm not sure how Lancers are going to overcome it in Game 3. I guess I just leaked that there's a Game 3, but you could probably figure that out anyway. As, wow, that Rock Slide doesn't even knock out the Hatterene at that range. This is why some people who were interested in Sand Teams still didn't want to draft Hippowdon. I definitely think Hippowdon can be a good Pokemon in draft, but it's not an offensive threat, and we just saw that there. But now we go to Game 3. I think leading the Gyarados again makes a lot of sense, and I don't know how the Lancers adjust to that. Maybe the Clear Amulet is on the Crawdaunt. And of course that resists Waterfall. I don't know what else the Gyarados has, but let's see what happens. It's Gyarados King Gambit lead this time against Salamence and Indeedee. Oh, the Salamence has the Clear Amulet. My bad if we saw that before. And I guess what we definitely saw before is that it's Moxie Salamence. So I don't know, yeah, I don't know what the adjustment is here for Lancers. It might just be as simple as... Well, okay, they had to do something for the Gyarados. The Excadrill wasn't working, so I guess you can't lead that again. And if you think that Salamence is your other offensive mode in this matchup, then okay, this lead makes sense, it's pretty straightforward. But the King Gambit covers that pretty well, resisting Salamence's stabs and threatening the Indeedee. So I like the adjustment from Mario Man again. As the Salamence is just going for Dragon Dance with Follow Me support. We saw they redirected an Ice Fang there, but the Indeedee drops the Kowtow Cleave, so they threw Indeedee away for +1 Salamence. Looks like they're going to go for a Decorate play now, and the Brick Break is a nice tech to cover the King Gambit. And yeah, the Salamence is just trying to snowball at this point. Oh, actually, the Alchemy goes for Acid Armor instead of Decorate. So the Salamence is threatening to snowball while the Alchemy sets up to wall the Gyarados. But otherwise, it's just special attackers for Mario Man. I mean, we don't know what the Squawkabilly does. The Squawkabilly could be a physical attacker. But Chandelure, hard-hitting special attacker. Hatterene, special. Venomoth, if it's running offense at all, it's a special attacker. So I don't know how much the Acid Armor does for them in the longer term in this game, but maybe they think that that's the adjustment they need for Gyarados. I don't know. As it's good Protect there. The Salamence drops to a Heat Wave from Chandelure, which misses Alchemy. Alchemy has Acid Armor and Calm Mind, so they're just trying to win the game with Alchemy. There's no Decorate here. They set up the Salamence offense so that the opponent would be occupied with dealing with that, and the Alchemy could set up. I'm going to be honest, I don't remember who wins this. I'm not confident that it's going to work, because Alchemy is just not that strong. But it's an interesting thing to try for sure, and they also brought the Crawdaunt to this game, so we saw all 6 Pokemon in this set. They completely gave up on the Hippowdon Excadrill stuff in front of the Gyarados, and that much makes sense to me. But okay, Crawdaunt dodges the Will-O-Wisp, Alchemy goes for +2, and Chandelure just drops to a knockoff. Lancers might be able to do this. Let's see. Draining Kiss Alchemy. It doesn't hit very hard, but it makes it that much harder to KO. But the Hatterene surviving this turn is big, as it can knock out the Crawdaunt, and it just comes to whether Alchemy can take down these 2 Pokemon. The Gyarados setting up is a problem, as I guess they know that they'll finish off the Hatterene this turn. And look at this endgame. +1 Gyarados versus +2 in special attack and both defenses Alchemy. I'm glad that I forgot who wins this because I do not know what's going to happen. The one thing I'll say is Gyarados being faster is huge here, both because, you know, either one could crit, but Gyarados going first means it has a chance to crit first, but more importantly, the Waterfall flinch chance could decide this game. And let's see. That's not doing a huge amount of damage. They actually go for the Acid Armor. That makes sense, I think, when you're recovering with Draining Kiss. That little bit of extra... Oh, and there's the crit. That little bit of extra bulk can really come through there. And yeah, they need some lucky flinches or something, but they don't get it. The Alchemy does close out this game. I apologize to Alchemy. I wasn't familiar with your game. Sorry for doubting you. But the Lightning Lancers take week 1, despite having to overcome that Gyarados. And we move on to our third set of the week. Send It Sandshrews versus Arctic Articunos, a staff showdown. As Sandshrews bring their Sun mode with Torkoal and Venusaur. Makes sense, it's sort of the most coherent thing I could see in their draft. The Espeon could also do some stuff under Sun. It could run like Weather Ball, it could have some kind of bulky Morning Sunset, who knows. It could do Psy Spam stuff with the Indeedee, so they have that option as well. They kind of have like a scuffed Draft League Sunroom mode here, as well as the Electivire doing whatever it does. And then Articunos just look pretty solid here. They got bulky Water, bulky-ish Fire, a couple of Grass types, the Ursaluna, the Muck. Just like a well-rounded team, it looks like. But I don't know what went into their game plan. We'll just have to go into the replay and see. Blastoise Ursaluna lead against Venusaur Torkoal. Okay, so the Venusaur looks at face value like it's a giant threat into everything here. We'll see how they adjust. Torkoal switches out for Indeedee. I guess the Torkoal was under a lot of threat, by contrast. Terra Grass Venusaur, but the Blastoise goes first with the Ice Beam. I saw some messages in the Discord after this set, and I think Sandshrews' coach forgot to put Chlorophyll on the Venusaur. Or just misclicked, or something got changed. I think it's Overgrow Venusaur in this set, and it's not supposed to be. And I think it's also Choice Scarf Blastoise. But yeah, the Blastoise going before the Venusaur was definitely not in Sandshrews' plans. So Venusaur takes a lot of damage, but it's not knocked out yet. We'll see what this Terra Grass can do. I don't know if it's just going for a big Solar Beam into something or what, but... No, it's Energy Ball into the Ursaluna, which has Terrestrialize out of the weakness. Does get the drop. And now the Muck switches in. Venusaur drops to Ice Beam. Male Indeedee Expanding Force hits reasonably hard. It doesn't knock anything out. Male Indeedee is not a super strong offensive Pokemon, but I think it has like base 95 special attack. You can't completely sleep on it. I had it in Season 2, as well as Maushold and Armarouge, and I won a set or two with like Hyper Voice Male Indeedee. In fact, I think it was my team's KO leader, at least for a while. So, fair enough, you can't sleep on that. And they brought the Electivire, not the Espeon, so there's no Espeon Psy Spam, at least in this game. But the Electivire can probably threaten the Blastoise. Then the Muck drops to an Expanding Force here if it stays in, and it does stay in. We see it going for Shadow Sneak into Electivire, so Psychic Terrain stops that, and the Expanding Force knocks both Pokemon out, and it's Tauros in the back along with Ursaluna. Follow Me Electivire. Oh yeah, that gets that. Of course it does. People have used Electabuzz in tournaments. And that, yeah, that Expanding Force, like I said, it's not the strongest thing, but it's enough to just rip through most of this team, as it's all down to the Ursaluna to try to win this now. And it can't do it, it drops to an Expanding Force. So Male Indeedee showing what it can do in that game. And I don't see any terrain answers on Reckless Trico's team. Unless it's like manual grassy terrain on the Electrode. Or that probably gets electric terrain as well. I don't know. I'm assuming it gets both. I haven't checked. On the other hand, the slow Venusaur is an issue still for Sandshrews if they want to keep running that mode. But let's see what happens in Game 2. Muck Blastoise lead against Venusaur Hitmontop. Okay. Trying to threaten the Blastoise with Fake Out, probably, and Trico clearly thinks so, and is correct, as the Tauros switches in and takes that pretty well. Fire Punch Muck. So does that KO in Sun? If I remember my multipliers correctly, I think it probably does. So that's pretty good coverage for the Venusaur right there. Oh, and we see that it has a Life Orb. I was about to speculate it might be safety goggles, but we actually see the Life Orb there. But even so, that Muck checks the Venusaur pretty effectively and isn't really afraid of the Hitmontop. It is afraid of the Indeedee if that comes back in, or the Espeon with Psychic Terrain support, but we know that they haven't brought both because here's the Torkoal. Crit Sun Boost to Tauros Flare Blitz. I don't think those multipliers mattered. I think Venusaur is dropping no matter what, but hey, at least the Tauros has done some damage to itself. And Hitmontop's back in. Clear Amulet, Tauros doesn't care. Just covers for Fake Out there. That Shadow Sneak did more damage to Muck than it did to Torkoal with the Life Orb. But hey, I guess when your opponent's going for Eruption, any bit of chip helps. And Trico's playing toward that. But does lose the Tauros here to a close combat. Wow, the Poison Touch poison on the Muck as well. Cherry Berry on the Hitmontop. So that's the berry that cures paralysis specifically and not any other status condition. So I think there was some talk in the Discord about why he ran that instead of Lumberry, but I don't remember what it was now. Maybe remind me in the comments if you see this. When you're up against Sinistcha, I'd be worried about a burn from Machagacha. So I might want a Lumberry for that reason. Obviously, the Muck can poison things. It just did. Yeah, so I don't know why Cherry Berry. But maybe I can check the Discord later. Or just let me know in the comments why you had that. Because I know it came up. But now we got the two offensive threats in Ursaluna and Blastoise. We know it's Scarf Blastoise. And here's the Indeedee threatening... You know, it's threatening its own... personal Psy Spam mode with just itself using Expanding Force again, except it drops to a Hyper Voice crit. So that switch didn't work out at all, and it's just Hitmontop now, presumably going to lose. Water Spout in Sun doesn't do very much, but Hitmontop targets the Blastoise. I don't know if it has a move to hit the Ursaluna, but it doesn't matter now, as Trico pretty handily takes game 2. What happened there? Yeah, the Indeedee switch in. And then the Torkoal's just too slow without Trick Room. We haven't seen Trick Room go up yet in this set, have we? But Trico just has too many threats. The Torkoal can't get going without a Trick Room. So we'll see whether Sandshrews make any kind of adjustment for that. But they're in a tough spot because the Torkoal, like I said, it can't get going in its own right without Trick Room, but also... It's meant to set up for the Venusaur, but the Venusaur having the wrong ability really sabotages them, unfortunately. So maybe it's time to show what the Espeon can do at this game. It could be the Trick Room setter, or it could have its own Expanding Force mode. I think it gets Expanding Force. I could see this being the Espeon game for sure. I also think that Electivire was doing more offensively than some of these other Pokemon were. So it might be worth bringing to this game. But let's see. As it's Muck Tauros lead against Hitmontop, and there's the Electivire. Still no Espeon so far. And Tauros avoids the Fake Out. Muck's Life Orb is knocked off. But Muck is, I think, not sweating that too much. It might even be glad to not be taking the recoil anymore. And look at how much that Flare Blitz did to Hitmontop without even any Sun. Electivire is just spamming knockoff. I don't know if we know that Electivire is choiced. But it's nice to get rid of the items, but the knockoff just isn't doing much damage to anything. Oh no, the Electivire to Citrus Berry. And now it goes for Supercell Slam into a Protect and knocks itself out. So that's a rough game for the Electivire. That's not what they needed. Torkoal's here. Do they have Trick Room? Well, not if the Indeedee gets knocked out, they don't. And the Torkoal Yeah, it finishes off the Tauros there, but especially after taking that crit, it just can't. It just doesn't have the tools here. Blastoise shows up in the back, and... Okay, Ice Spin or Hitmontop. That is a move that can hit Ghost types. It also gets rid of your own terrain, unfortunately, for Sandshrews, but... Yeah. Trico just keeps up the offensive pressure, and Sandshrews can't keep up. We jump now to the Flatland Flat Sands versus the Marvelous Bridge Malamars. Malamars, you might recall, are the team that could run Mono Dark any given week. They have 6 Dark types, but they've only brought 3 to this game. To this set, I should say. And I don't know what they're... Also 2 Grass Starters. I don't know what they're doing with these Pokemon. I don't know what Greedent does, except like Belly Drum and Trick Room. They could be running a Trick Room mode. They could also have some combo with the Metagross and like a Weakness Policy tech or something, but I really don't know. I'm just spitballing. I think we'll have to get into the replay to see. And on Flat Sand side, I think I saw in the Discord that it's beat up Whimsicott with Justified Lucario, so that's good tech. Could also be setting up Stamina Mudsdale if they want. Clefable, I don't know, bring some solid support with like Unaware Follow Me stuff. Could be strong into a boosting set on this side from something like the Greedent. Not as strong into the Metagross because of the Steel type weakness, but of course you do have Terra for that. Then Jolteon just hits a few of these Pokemon hard and fast, and Kleavor not as fast, but it certainly can hit Dark types hard. As can Lucario, as can Mudsdale with Body Press, especially if you boost it. So a lot of offensive threats here for Malamars to try to deal with, but we'll see what they do. As it's Kleavor, Whimsicott lead against 2 Dark types. Kleavor just goes right for a U-turn into Meowscarada, knocks it down to its Sash, and we get Lucario in. Knockoff does get rid of the Whimsicott's Sash, but doesn't do much damage, and there's the beat-up setup, turn 1. So it could be like Scarf Kleavor. I mean, it probably is if it's going for before a Meowscarada. So they get damage, and they get their setup. Screen fills with text again. And that Tailwind comes out too late to do anything about turn 1. Plus, yeah, the Whimsicott has its own Prankster Tailwind to set. Aurasphere Meowscarada is an interesting tech. I don't know how good Meowscarada's special attack is. I've only ever run it as a physical attacker. But starters usually, not always, usually have pretty well-rounded stats. So genuinely, I don't know what its special attack value is. I could see it being usable. But I guess the counterpoint is that this Aurasphere is not doing as much as you'd want to a Lucario, so it might just not have... Meowscarada's special attack might just not be worth it. I don't know. In any case, the Lucario has gotten going. The Whimsicott finishes off Meowscarada there, and that, yeah, big Drain Punch into the Mandibuzz. Mandibuzz is bulky and not weak to fighting, so doesn't knock it out, but another one will, and I can't imagine, or a Moonblast will, and I can't imagine this Meganium is much of a threat. So Pancake Mix can just throw off attacks. The Meganium is there to set screens for the Greedent. Okay, so the Greedent is going to try to set up, I think. It takes a Drain Punch. It just goes right for Earthquake. Okay, yeah, you need the offense here, but really it's a last-ditch effort that is too little too late, as X-Scissor into... Well, that's some good recovery with that Cheek Pouch Berry, but unboosted Earthquake is just not doing enough damage to Kleavor. We do see that Mudsdale is the last Pokemon in the back for Pancake Mix, but the Kleavor finishes it off pretty cleanly. So that was just pretty straightforward but effective mode there. Malamars just didn't have a good answer to Lucario, and the Scarf Kleavor, I assume it's Scarf Kleavor, being able to do damage right off the bat and then come back in and finish things off. Gonna be tough for them to adjust for. I don't know what on this team can handle that mode, but we'll just have to see. Maybe something with the Metagross. I feel like I have no idea what set the Metagross is running, but I feel like it could easily be the key to game 2 here. But let's see. This time they lead Lucario with Kleavor against Greedent and Mandibuzz. Switch Whimsicott in. Just go right for Stone Axe, get a crit on the Mandibuzz, and set up Stealth Rock. So that's fun. The Greedent is just going for Terra Ground Earthquake immediately, but without some kind of setup, I just don't see how the damage is there. As Mandibuzz drops to a Moonblast, there's no Tailwind. The Metagross is here. I don't know what it's going to do. Switching Lucario in is interesting when the Greedent is spamming Earthquake. But it actually goes for Body Slam this time into Whimsicott. Okay. But I'm not sure. The unboosted Lucario isn't doing a ton of damage. And Clefable drops, healing Lucario. Terra Dark Cleavor takes out the Metagross with the Night Slash. And okay, Cleavor probably has this now. Well, actually, no, it doesn't. No, there's no way it's going to knock out the Greedent before Greedent knocks it out. Because Greedent has all that bulk and recovery. Yeah, Greedent's almost back to full. And could just Body Slam the Terra Dark Cleavor. So that was just... They were just trading blows that game, but without the setup on the Lucario, it wasn't doing enough damage, I think. And I've been doubting the Greedent all this time, but it's just bulky enough that it can break the revenge killing cycle from the Cleavor. So yeah, I guess with the Greedent as a backbone for the team, and the Metagross to a lesser extent, if they just trade blows like that, Malamars win. Most of the time, at least, because they can weather enough offense that they get their chance to hit back, and Flat Sands can't keep up. So let's see if they go back to the setup or something like that in this game. It is Whimsicott Lucario lead against Meowscarada and Metagross. If those two Pokemon have a combo that they're pulling, let's see it. But no, they just are trying to get rid of the Whimsicott, I think. Pancake might have thought there might be a combo because clearly prioritized getting rid of Meowscarada there. But also, the Metagross does not knock out Whimsicott. Instead, it goes for Psychic Fangs into the Lucario. So that means the Whimsicott is free still to... Well, it can do the beat-up setup, and in fact it does. Lucario being at low HP is a little bit of a risk, but of course we know it has Drain Punch. And yeah, leaving the Whimsicott on the field might turn out to be a mistake. Because Lucario actually just goes for Crunch and knocks out the Metagross, and does not drop to Mandibuzz's Air Slash, so that could decide the game right now. Terra fighting Lucario means even more Drain Punch recovery. And yeah, I think that the setup is the difference here. I think if they don't get the setup, they can't break through all of the bulky Pokemon that the Malamars have. But with the setup, there's just nothing on this other team that can stop them. And we saw that bear out in the games that were played. Games 1 and 3 set up Lucario and more or less swept. I mean, Lucario didn't finish sweeping in Game 1, but the Cleavor was able to clean up. And in Game 2, no setup, just couldn't break through. But once they got the setup, yeah, nothing on this team could handle it. So that's going to be a threat for future opponents to keep an eye on, no doubt. Over now to... What teams are these? I think Moville Mudkips versus Varsity Farmboys. Unfortunately, the Mudkip has not come this week. Instead, it's just a well-rounded team full of threats, basically. They got the Fire, Water, Grass, and 2 parts of Fairy, Dragon, Steel. A whole bunch of bulky Pokemon that can do some good damage, and Tailwind Setter and Talonflame. And then on the other side... Is this their Rain mode? I don't really understand what Rain mode the Farm Boys have, but if they bring Politoed and Empoleon, I think they're probably doing something with Rain. The Blissey... I mean, Blissey's main job is to wall special attackers, and I don't see any special attackers here, so I'll be surprised if the Blissey even comes to a game. I guess Duraludon can run special attacks, but it's not one of the main threats anyway. Don't know what Scovillain's gonna do, don't know what Ursaluna's gonna do, really don't know what Bayleaf is gonna do, so this should be a fun one to watch for sure. As it's Garchomp and Talonflame against Bayleaf and Empoleon. I see the nicknames here are 2 of the 7 deadly sins. That nickname doesn't hold up. Theme doesn't hold up across an 11 Pokemon roster, so I wonder if it's a Full Metal Alchemist theme, but we'll see. Are they going to set up the Swamp? Tailwind versus the Swamp is a wash, right? I think. Maybe I, again, don't know my multipliers. But then the Garchomp is still such a threat to anything here. Do you use your Terra on the Empoleon to take a Dark attack? I don't know, we'll see. Terra Fire Garchomp. I don't know why that's the call here, especially with... I don't know why you go Terra Fire on Garchomp in front of an Empoleon when you're not even using a fire attack, you're just going for Earthquake into the Bayleaf. I don't understand that play, but Empoleon with Terra Flying does avoid the Earthquake, so just as I speculated, they do use their Terra there. And I see the Bayleaf going for Grass Pledge, so it looks like it is going to be a swamp setup. Yeah, it is. Okay. And then the Empoleon just goes for Surf with Helping Hand support from the Bayleaf. So it's Swamp plus Surf, plus they probably have Rain available whether or not they brought it to this game. That's awesome. That's a fun combo, and these two Pokemon look very slow all of a sudden. I mean, the Duraludon at least resists water, and probably has an Eviolite. I guess you could do a 7 Deadly Sins nickname theme when you're only bringing 6 Pokemon each week, so I guess if you don't hard commit each nickname to one Pokemon, you can do it every week, just swap the nicknames around. But we'll see as the season goes on. In any case, yeah, that Helping Hand Surf is a real threat here. But Bayleaf just goes for Grass Pledge. It doesn't knock Swampert out even with a crit, so unfortunately Bayleaf showing that it's just not very strong. But the Surf will finish Swampert off. And I don't think Duraludon can win this by itself. The question at this point is, will we see a third Pokemon from the Farmboys? And we actually will, as the Bayleaf gets knocked out. And it is Politoed third, so that'll boost the Surf even more. Not that they probably want to use Surf here, but in a different situation, they'd have the option. But yeah, double Ice Beam just finishes off the Duraludon. That was a great Game 1 from Varsity Farmboys. Let's see if they can keep it up in Game 2. How do you beat the Surf mode on the other side? They got 2 ground types. We've already seen that it's Terra Flying Empoleon and willing to use it. Maybe they have Rock Slide on something? Or like a random Terra Electric Pokemon? I feel like if that's what you have to show it here. Oh, but it's actually Blissey and Bayleaf in the lead against Scizor and Talonflame. I said that I was not expecting to see Blissey come to a game at all, but here it is. And I can only imagine they're trying to do some bulky, grindy stuff if they're leading these 2 Pokemon. But the Scizor might be able to break it. Let's see. Just get the Tailwind up right away, and we don't get to see what the Blissey can do as it drops to a close combat. Bayleaf just goes for knockoff into the Scizor, which had a Choice Band. Now Politoed gets in, and is it going to be Surf again with the Helping Hand boost? I actually thought that the Scizor was going to KO Politoed there, and we wouldn't see what Politoed would do. Instead, it goes for a hit into Bayleaf, so there's no KO on that side this turn, and we do get to see the Politoed, I assume, get off the Surf. Decidueye comes in to take it. Muddy Water, right. Forgot the Politoed runs that. Decidueye still takes a lot of damage after the Helping Hand boost, but it does get to finish off Politoed as the Tailwind is coming in big here for the Mudkips. And I don't think Ursaluna can win this. The Tailwind is going to wear off, but Ursaluna still has to take 2 attacks, one of them a Leaf Blade, before it can do anything. It does have its Terra available. It's Terra Fairy. Okay, so it doesn't have to take the Scale Shot after all. But the Scizor should be able to clean it up now. So, I'm not sure what Farmboys were going for there. But whatever they were doing with the Blissey, it just didn't work. And the Decidueye being able to take a water attack, it took a lot of damage after the Helping Hand boost, but it could come in on 1. And then the offensive synergy with the Scizor and the Garchomp was just too much to deal with. It was what, Scizor Talonflame lead this game? So even if they go for the Swamp setup again in Game 3, the Bayleaf is going to have a hard time pulling that off. You could maybe Terra the Bayleaf, but then you have to worry about close combat from Scizor into the Empoleon. So I don't know that they can just cleanly go back to the swamp setup. They might have to find something else to do, but their whole team seems to be built around Helping Hand boosted spread water attacks. And they need to get those going somehow in Game 3. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's actually the Scovillain in the lead with the Empoleon, so we get to see what Scovillain does here against another Scizor Talonflame lead. Terra Steel Scizor, what is it cooking? It just goes right for a knockoff into the Scovillain. Oh, I guess it was just turning its double fire weakness into a single fire weakness. Does that mean they don't have Brave Bird on the Talonflame, or did they anticipate a Terra? Or I guess the Scovillain could have a Focus Sash. I don't think we've seen one yet on this team. There's a reasonable chance that it does. Scovillain just goes for Rage Powder, so this may turn out to be a waste of their Terra, but we'll see. Napoleon just goes for Surf, knocks out its partner, notably, but also the Talonflame, but the Tailwind is up. The Decidueye coming in here, we know that both of these have Ice Beam. So the Decidueye will get off a big hit into something, or at least it can, under the Tailwind. The Scizor is Choice Banded, so it's locked into knockoff, which isn't ideal here. But it can do a lot of damage to something. The Decidueye, I think, has to target this correctly and get off a lot of damage before it drops to... and maybe even knock something out, or it might drop to double Ice Beam. Let's see. They do just get the Leaf Blade into Politoed. And the knockoff does a lot to Empoleon. Yep, and the Decidueye survives the turn because it only has to take one attack. Ursaluna comes in, so no Bayleaf this game. They preserve the Scizor, so I just don't see how the Terra Fairy Ursaluna gets past that. The water types just drop too easily with the Tailwind and no swamp setup. And ooh, even the Flash Cannon from the Duraludon does a lot of damage to Ursaluna, and the Scizor will just finish it off here. It can't even protect because of the burn. And actually the Decidueye gets it with Shadow Sneak. So yeah, they pulled off the swamp setup in Game 1, and that worked very well, but the opponent adjusted to setting up Tailwind turn... well, they were already setting up Tailwind turn 1, but they were able to deny the swamp with the offensive pressure from Scizor. Farmboys never even went for the swamp again, but I think it would have been harder to pull off even if they had tried it. And then that meant the Tailwind was uncontested. Decidueye could take a water-type attack and throw off big hits into the water spam. The Ursaluna was just too slow and had too many exploitable weaknesses, whether it terrestrialized or not. The Scizor was played well around it to make sure that it could cover for the Ursaluna in the late game, so after the surprise in Game 1, that was some solid offensive play from the Mauville Mudkips, and they deservingly take this game. Or this set, I mean. Looks like there are 3 sets left to cover. Starting with Big Time Sandrush versus... what's this team called? I'm sorry, hopefully it'll come to me. What is this team called? Well, just gonna jump into it. Actually, I got so rattled there that I forgot to look at what they brought. So it is the Klefki or Chalodon. We even see them in the lead here, so it's probably Manual Rain. And then a lot of interesting pieces. I don't know what they're going to do. Could be a Trick Room setup with the Oranguru. And then Cranidos actually has a very respectable attack stat. It could hit pretty hard, especially with Instruct support. The Archaludon, of course, doesn't have to worry about speed control and Trick Room for the most part. The Klefki, as well as Rain, can set screens and whatnot. But then I don't know how the Cinderace fits into that. Maybe the Cinderace is for a different game plan. We'll just have to wait and see. And on this side, it is Superior and Flamigo, so if it's Terra Stellar Superior, then Flamigo can copy the boosts. There's also the possibility for Flamigo to copy a Belly Drum boost from Ice-Q, which would be very exciting to see. Strong special offense with Espathra and Superior, and Volcarona. Volcarona could also be running like a Rage Powder set to help Ice-Q set up. And then the Palmet can... I don't know what the Palmet is here for, except of course they can use Revival Blessing to bring back a threat. So just a ton of offensive threats on Big Time Sandrush's side of the field, on both sides of the spectrum. Very hard to deal with, but a Trick Room mode might be the way to do it. Let's see. Palmet Ice-Q lead. Fake out. And we see it is Stamina on the Archaludon. Klefki is going for screens, and Ice-Q just goes right for the Belly Drum. Do they switch in Flamigo next? Yeah, they do. So now +6 attack on both of these. The Ice Cube is paralyzed and knocked out, but that might not matter if they can get the Flamigo going, and it is a Rage Powder Volcarona. So Flamigo can just rip right through the Archaludon. The Klefki could still be a problem if there's a full para on the Volcarona, but this turn there isn't. And I don't mean to skip right over the Terra Fire Cinderace. That's going to do a lot of damage to something, I would think. Klefki does drop here. I think anything drops to Flamigo at this point. But Cinderace, yeah, with the Terra Fire Pyro Ball, just knocks out the Volcarona. There is still Fake Out support on the field now as the Palmet comes back in and targets correctly. But the Flamigo does not target correctly, so no KO this turn. Terra Electric Palmet. Cinderace drops to close combat. Scarf Flamigo, I would think. And yeah, like I said, Sandrush team just hit too hard with too many threats. And just the right supports in the Fake Out and the Rage Powder at the right times. The Klefki could have cheesed through this game if it had some paralysis luck, but it didn't. And that Flamigo just looked unstoppable. So let's see if they have a way to stop it from setting up in game 2. Same leads. The Ice Cube protects this time. And the Palmet just goes for Double Shock right into Klefki. So I understand trying to get damage on the Klefki, but they must be setting up for something, because that wasn't close to a KO. But the Klefki is, you know, one possible problem. Or maybe they just thought that the Archaludon would not let them set up turn 1 a second time in a row. That much makes sense as well. Well, they could have threatened Fake Out into it, but then you risk, I guess, the para into something. I don't know. Anyway, the Ice Cube goes for Terra Water here, so it's not going to drop as easily to a Flash Cannon. They get Volcarona in. This is a good chance for Ice Cube to set up, I would think. And it does. And it protects. There's the Manual Rain from the Klefki. And that means our Archaludon gets 1 turn Electro Shot, which is big into both Ice Cube after the Terra and Flamigo. So that might turn the game around right there. Finally showing the Manual Rain. And whatever the Volcarona went for, we know it wasn't Rage Powder, and it didn't work because of the para. Rage Powder here redirects Thunder Wave, almost a Thunderbolt. But now the Archaludon shows Meteor Beam and deletes the Volcarona. So even though Klefki goes down here and Flamigo gets in at +6 again, it just switches right out. Oh, Terra Flying Archaludon. So the Archaludon is showing every tech it has to stop this mode. But obviously Palmet can threaten some damage into it now. Palmet goes from Mach Punch into Ice Cube and breaks its Ice Face. Oh, Ice Cube gets faster when its Ice Face is broken, doesn't it? So that's... I assume that's why he went for that play. Here he chooses to knock out the Oranguru. And Double Shock does a lot of damage to Archaludon. Archaludon has kind of a tall order turning this one around, but it does knock out the Ice Cube, and that means Flamigo gets in with no boosts. And Palmet can't switch out and get its electric typing back. And I'll be honest, I forgot that the Cinderace was still healthy, so yeah, I think they can take this one. Palmet drops without its electric typing, and unboosted Flamigo is just not winning this. So yeah, the Archaludon pulled out all the stops that game and was able to stop the, was able to do just enough to slow the Flamigo mode down and get the positioning right to win. But we'll just have to see how Robbie adjusts in this game. He hasn't so far had to show any other mode. And my guess is he's going to do something very different this time. I don't think he's going to run back the same mode again. But let's see. It is Klefki or Archaludon again. Against Ice Cube and Palmet, so I've guessed wrong, it seems. The Ice Cube can set up, but it takes the para. It does go for the turn 1 setup again. And Volcarona comes in. The Ice Cube, I assume, tried to protect, but it was paralyzed. And drops to Meteor Beam, so the setup has failed. I don't know if Robbie can bring this one back. That was a very bad full para for him, but let's see. Getting rid of the Clef Key is a good start. Terra Fairy, Oranguru. Drops to a double shock crit. Wow. And there goes any possible Trick Room mode. And that Fiery Dance with no rain did a lot to our Chatots, which can no longer... which has already used its Power Herb. And so Meteor Beam is now a 2-turn attack. That's just too slow to deal with the Volcarona. And I assume they did want to set Trick Room with the Oranguru, because I think the Cranidos is here to go wild under Trick Room. But that crit into the Oranguru... I mean, I said it was a big full para earlier. The crit was more important, and that should seal it for Robbie. Ooh, Cranidos just barely takes a double shock. Volcarona protects around 2 rock attacks. Palmet takes the rock slide, finish Cranidos off with a Mach Punch, and our Chatots drops 2 Fiery Dance. And, yeah, without the Oranguru, Britzler's team just can't pull it off, and big time Sand Rush with a really interesting team take week 1. We didn't even see the Espathra or the Superior, so that was a whole other dangerous offensive mode that they've shown everyone they have, in case anyone forgot, but we haven't seen what it can do. And I'm just going to quickly check the Discord to see the name of Britzler's team, because I feel bad that I'm blanking on that. The Miami Palafins. Sorry, Miami Palafins. I'll do better next time. Second last set of the week, we've got Drago's Strongest Warrior versus the Ceaseless Samurotts. I had my eye on the Samurotts coming out of the draft because their team is full of Pokemon that I know are interesting, but I don't understand very well. It's kind of fair to call Skeledirge one of those Pokemon, but really the most notable here is Hisuian Samurott. And Drago's Strongest Warrior has, brought the Sand mode. Well, brought a Sand mode. No Lycanroc, but a bunch of ground and rock types with the Comfey to help keep them happy and healthy. And the Zebstrika probably covering for the likes of this Samurott here. Let's see what happens. Farigiraf and Toxicroak lead against Tyranitar and Probopass. I don't know what Probopass is going to do. It's just going to switch right out for Zebstrika on the Toxicroak fake out, and that knockoff does a lot to Farigiraf through the Colbur Berry, but the Colbur Berry keeps Farigiraf alive, so it gets the Trick Room up. Terra Flying Tyranitar, pretty standard. Just deletes Toxicroak with the Helping Hand Terra Blast, and takes very little from the Dazzling Gleam crit there. Now denying the Torch Song setup. Zebstrika is taunting Farigiraf, okay. I thought maybe it would take the KO there, but it does not. Farigiraf goes out to Lurantis, and it's Helping Hand Rock Slide time again. Skeledirge doesn't quite drop, but it does flinch. And a lot depends on the Lurantis at this point. Terra Steel Superpower with the Contrary Boost is a good start. It takes the Terra Blast very well, but it's already below 50% HP, and it kind of has to win the game at this point. And the Trick Room drops just as Comfey comes in to keep the Tyranitar healthy. Tyranitar can go for a Rock Slide pretty safely. Crits the Lurantis. Doesn't KO. Does KO Skeledirge. Petal Blizzard does a lot of damage. The Lurantis... it's going to be tough with the Comfey keeping Tyranitar healthy. I don't think the Lurantis can win this, but it's putting in a lot of work, and that's definitely something that Panda has to have in mind going into Game 2. But it just doesn't do enough work in the end with the Comfey sitting there, keeping the Tyranitar healthy, and Tyranitar just sweeps through Panda's team with Comfey's help. So as we go to Game 2... there are Pokemon that in theory can exploit the Tyranitar, right? Before Terra, it's threatened by all three of these, Toxicroak, Lurantis, Samurott. But the Terra Flying really flips things on its head. Kilowattrel then can hit it hard, but doesn't want to take a Rock Slide in Trick Room. So if Drago's Strongest Warrior gets the Trick Room up again, it's hard to see much stopping the Terraflying Tyranitar. I don't know what the adjustment is here, but let's see. Farigiraf. Wait, it was Farigiraf that set the Trick Room, right? I said if Drago's Strongest Warrior gets the Trick Room again, but they didn't even set the Trick Room. They used their opponent's Trick Room. So just don't set the Trick Room. I mean, they probably can set it. I mean, Drago can probably set it with Comfey at least. I don't know if Probopass gets Trick Room. I think it might. But don't set it yourself, and that's a good start to the adjustment. The Kilowattrel lead is tricky because the Tyranitar has no reason to Terra in front of these. It's not really afraid of Dazzling Gleam from Farigiraf. So any advantage that Kilowattrel might have, I would think is a later game thing. I think you almost have to switch the Kilowattrel out here. And then that's giving Tyranitar a good chance to get off damage into something. But actually, it just sets Tailwind. Or Earthquake Farigiraf, which does not do very much damage to either Pokemon on the other side. And it's Electro Web Zebstrika with Rock Slide Tyranitar. It is a Charty Berry Kilowattrel, but look at how low it is. I think that's a tech that I think you needed to force the Terra out of the Tyranitar and then save the Charty Berry Kilowattrel tech for later. But I can understand leading with it if you think that Tyranitar... Like, I understand leading with it if you think that Tyranitar is going to be a threat in the early game, but there's nothing here that forces the Tyranitar to Terra. The Farigiraf is just not enough of a threat. So you just kind of throw the Kilowattrel away. It's going to drop to Sand damage here. Yeah, we know it hasn't switched out, because it would have switched out before the Tyranitar. And now you don't have that Revenge Kill threatened if the Tyranitar does Terra in the late game. So I think the Kilowattrel did need to come to this game, probably, but I think it... I don't think it could lead next to Farigiraf. Maybe next to something else, like Toxicroak. Or maybe you bring it in the back, but I don't think this was the adjustment. And the Comfey gets in here pretty safely. Doesn't take a whole lot from that charged Air Slash. I guess with the Earthquake and the Sand damage, things start to add up, and you can't do Priority Draining Kiss with Armor Tail on the field. But... they might knock out the Farigiraf here if the Zebstrika has a tool for it. The Zebstrika, I don't think the Zebstrika does have a tool for it. I should stop thinking about that. But at this point, Drago's just kind of chipping the other team down, and Tyranitar comes back in earlier than I expected and takes a Bullet Punch for its trouble. Tyranitar is now very low, but with Zebstrika knocked out, you get Comfey back in. I thought they'd take their time more and bring Tyranitar back in later. Maybe pivot in whatever the fourth Pokemon is. But they have what they wanted now. They have Comfey and Tyranitar on the field, and it's pretty safe to Terra the Tyranitar. And they do. And I don't know what stops this. Not Bullet Punch. Let's see what's in the back for Panda. The Cecil Samurotts. It is Hisuian Samurott. That could be a threat with priority. But just goes for Ceaseless Edge into Comfey on a double protect. And... okay, and Farigiraf drops, and I think you can pretty safely heal Tyranitar and go for like a Terra Blast into the Samurott now. Wow, misses Ceaseless Edge. Actually go for knockoff. I guess if you're paying more if you're playing the game and you're paying more attention than perhaps I am on my 7th out of 8 rounds of commentary in a single sitting, you've already seen that the Samurott has safety goggles, so I don't really know why you need the knockoff there. I don't know why you don't go for the damage with Terra Blast, but in any case, Probopass comes in as the 4th Pokemon. Draining Kiss does a lot to Samurott, and the Samurott's just not breaking through. Tyranitar switches in here. Samurott would have just dropped to another Draining Kiss. Instead, Probopass drops to a Sacred Sword. Now they're playing the pivoting positioning game that I thought made sense earlier. I don't know why they're doing it now, but it doesn't matter as the Samurott has taken too much damage, and maybe they thought it could take a Draining Kiss earlier. I don't know the calc, but it definitely doesn't take one there. And Drago's Strongest Warrior gets the first 2-0 win of the season, and we have just one set left to cover in Week 1. The Alaskan Absols versus the Dallas Dragapults. And we see the rain mode for the Dragapults right off the bat, with Pelipper, Basculegion, and Overquill all here. We see the Hawlucha, which could have Grassy Seed Unburden stuff with the Rillaboom. We see the Riolu, which almost certainly carries coaching for, I mean, take your pick of 4 possible physical attackers here. And opposing them, I mean, I think Hisui and Goodra makes a lot of sense to try to slow these Pokemon down, except Hawlucha. Hawlucha could be a problem for it. But yeah, that's a good bulky pick to bring. Again, Sarina resists a lot of the obvious offense that Ninja Meerkat can bring, except Pelipper Hurricane, Overquill, pick a poison attack, Hawlucha, pick a flying attack. So Sarina is going to be tough to position here. Certainly tougher than the Hisui and Goodra. Primarina could do a lot of damage, but is threatened by the Rillaboom. And to an extent by the Basculegion if it gets last respect set up. Oh, and definitely by the Overquill. So Primarina is not a very safe bring, but it's strong into some of these Pokemon. Baxcalibur makes a lot of sense with the Dragon typing. I don't know what the mode is for the Absols to bring here, but they have some pieces that at least can try to slow down this offense. And we've seen in some of the other sets that if you can slow down a hyper-offensive team, you might be able to hit back hard enough that they can't break through and you win. I haven't even talked about the Incineroar with Intimidate into all these likely physical attackers. So there's probably a path here. I don't see it myself, but they've thought about the matchup, and we'll see what they do. Girafarig and Incineroar against Overquill and Hawlucha. Okay, I don't know what Overquill and Hawlucha do together, but we'll see. Also, it's Intimidate Overquill, not Swift Swim. So that's threatening into... I mean, I talked about all the physical attackers on Dragapult's side, but Absols also brought a lot of physical attackers. And their main special attacker, Primarina, is of course threatened by a Gunk Shot or a Poison Jab from the Overquill. So Intimidate Overquill can do a lot this game, potentially. We don't get to see what Hawlucha is cooking. We do get the Taunt, preventing a Trick Room on the Girafarig. So that's... yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Basculegion gets in here. Barb Barrage. Okay, I've used Quillfish in this league. What does Barb Barrage do? It has a poison chance. I don't remember what else it does. I think the poison chance is high. In any case, that Basculegion just takes a big knockoff. But I'm not confident that Ice Shard KOs it, so it might still get a big hit off with if Rain goes up. Barb Barrage poisons the Baxcalibur. It has never failed to poison so far, so maybe it's 100%. I don't think it is. But wait, hang on. It did 31 there, 15 before. Does Barb Barrage do more damage when the opponent is poisoned? Primarina comes in, but I mean, Primarina has a lot of trouble dealing with Pelipper and Overquill. Pelipper did not go for Wide Guard there, so Primarina could get off Hyper Voice. But the fact that it's gone Terra Fairy in front of Overquill tells me it's not doing that. Takes the Barb Barrage pretty well, but now it's poisoned. And that Dazzling Gleam knocks out Pelipper, but not Overquill. Excalibur drops the poison damage, and Primarina is not taking another hit. It does have the Fake Out support now from Incineroar. Of course, Incineroar cannot Fake Out the Basculegion. But Overquill just goes for Haze instead of finishing Primarina off, but Hawlucha Basculegion with 2 turns of Rain left at least is such a strong mode. Yeah, I mean, these two Pokemon are just helpless. And then Girafarig is not going to clean this up. So yeah, the Overquill playing a quieter move with Haze was absolutely fine because there was just no way that the Absols could handle its teammates in the back. And the Rain mode breaks through in Game 1. With that Barb Barrage Poison putting in a lot of work. So I'm actually going to... I don't know what this looks like on the recording, but I'm going to look up what Barb Barrage does before we get into the next game. 30% chance to poison. Double power into status. Oh wait, that's Gen 8. Gen 9, 50% chance to poison. Double power if the opponent is poisoned. We never saw it to fail to poison in that last game. So a little bit of luck there, but still definitely a threat to deal with here. And I don't know how you stop that rain mode if you're the Absols. I think you have to bring Hisui and Goodra to this game. I mean, the poison immunity just makes it that much more important. Well, let's just get right into it, because my throat's getting tired and the video's getting long. Incineroar Girafarig lead against Riolu and Overquill. That's interesting. Is Riolu going to give a coaching boost to the Barb Barrage? Well, they probably want to stop Trick Room first, but Girafarig just switches right out, and it is the Hisui and Goodra in the back this game. I didn't think about Upper Hand. Upper Hand stops a fake out from the Incineroar, and then Overquill is free to taunt the Girafarig slot. So yeah, no Trick Room still. Just no way for Absols to get that set up. Goodra goes right for Terra Steel, so I don't know what they're cooking with that. They are immune to the Barb Barrage, which we see finally fail to get a poison. But look at -1 attack Riolu, doing almost 50% to Goodra with close combat. That's a Riolu, that's not a Lucario. And it's at -1 attack, but it just... I mean, and the Hisui and Goodra seems so important in this matchup. That's some really bad damage to take. It does get the Ice Beam freeze on the Overquill, so that's something. I don't know why you click Snarl here. Maybe... Like, I guess if you don't think you can switch to the Incineroar, and you think you need damage, and you don't have a better attack, I don't know what the Incineroar has. Maybe it doesn't have another attack to use, but I feel like... Incineroar... I mean, if this is the position, I just don't think Incineroar can stay in here. I guess there's... Excuse me, there's nothing in the back that they want to take a Barb Barrage. The Girafarig is probably not an offensive threat. So maybe it's Primarina in the back, and they just really don't want it to take a Barb Barrage. I can understand, I guess, if you're stuck in that position, but that's a really bad spot to be in then. And with the Goodra taunted, and at just barely over 50% HP, it's not looking good for the Absols. The Riolu has a drop in every stat, which is pretty funny. It's like it used... It's like it got a contrary Omni boost, but it's already put in a lot of work, so I don't think anyone's too worried about that. In any case, the Overquill goes down here, so that if it is the Primarina in the back, that opens up some space for it. Bascule Legion comes in now and gets a coaching boost, and Wave Crash just takes out the Goodra. The Goodra turned off its Dragon typing. I don't know. Do we have any info on why they did that? It went for Ice Beam last turn. That doesn't benefit at all from Terra Steel. The Poison immunity is there either way. The Fighting weakness is there either way. I don't know why they went for that Terra Steel, but it ends up being a problem against the Bascule Legion, and I think that... I mean, with the Overquill gone, maybe Primarina can claw this back. If it's Rillaboom in the back, that's really bad news for Primarina. That Parting Shot is something. It's Sash Girafarig. It just goes for Dazzling Gleam. They both go for Dazzling Gleam. Okay, so the Bascule Legion is off the board, but it is Rillaboom in the back. That's the last thing you want to see right now if you're the Absols. Good try with the Ally Switch, but... They still get the Primarina with Woodhammer. Don't know if they read the Ally Switch or just felt safe to get rid of Girafarig first. And Incineroar... Okay, it does have knockoff. I don't know why they went for Snarl that other turn, but... But the low kick Rillaboom... Wow, the low kick Rillaboom... Faster than Incineroar. Probably just gonna pull this one off. I think in I think there's some worlds where the Incineroar could have clawed that back, but not against low kick Rillaboom. Actually, a knockoff crit there would have done it. I don't know if they were reading another Ally Switch. Of course, in this generation, Ally Switch can fail if you use it back to back. So I probably would still target the Incineroar slot, unless they thought the Girafarig had something to do a lot of damage. I don't think you read an Ally Switch there. But it doesn't matter. The knockoff doesn't crit. The Rillaboom narrowly survives. and the Dallas Dragapults take this set in 2 games with the low kick Rillaboom coming through against Incineroar. It actually also makes a lot of sense to cover for the Baxcalibur and the Goodra, so that's some good team building there. And for all that I talked up the Goodra, it might have had a hard time dealing with this team. I don't know why. I don't think Terra Steel was the call against this team anyway. I don't really know what benefit it ever brings here, but yeah, with the low kick Rillaboom in the back, the Goodra was just not doing it. That's a very good tech for this matchup. And this was a tough one for the Absols. I hope they pick back up next week. I don't know who their opponent is. I'm not saying I hope their opponent loses, but I hope they, you know, make some noise next week. But this was a tough one for them. And that was week 1 of the Prismatic Draft League Season 6. Lots of fun matchups. Some great trades already, and I can tell you, as I'm recording this on Sunday, there's already a trade and a set have already happened for next week. So enthusiasm is high. It's going to be a great season. Let's keep watching it together. See you next time.